Hi, I'm Bill Bianchi, co-chair of Progressive Democrats of America in Illinois, and I'm here in the south suburban Chicago with Robin Kelly, candidate for the congressional seat in Illinois' 2nd District, formerly held by Jesse Jackson Jr., and the primary is February 26th. Hello, Robin, and thank you so much for giving us this time.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Why don't we start with your story. Tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're seeking this office.
Okay. Well, I'm a mother and married with 2 adult children, originally from New York, came here to go to Bradley University and wound up living in Peoria and then moving to the Chicagoland area 20 years ago. I'm running because even though this area has many challenges, I see it as a renaissance in the wings. I see it as a place where we can be an economic engine with highly skilled workers. I see it as a place where families would want to move to, stay in, and relocate to, because we do have safe streets, good schools, good jobs. People can live, work, play, and shop closer to home than they are able to now.
Now, you have quite a bit of experience with government. Could you just summarize that a little bit?
Sure. I have 20 years of governmental experience, actually on every level, but the federal level. I've worked for municipal government where the rubber really meets the road, and I was a state representative, the chief of staff in Alexei Janulis's treasurer's office, and up until recently, the chief administrative officer for the county. Great.
Now, in this crowded field, how would you say your background distinguishes you from the others?
Well, I do feel, as I just shared with you some of the things I've done, that I have a breadth of experience that others don't have. And beside my governmental experience, I've worked in higher ed, I've worked in the hospital system, and I've worked in social service. My undergrad is in psychology and my master's is in counseling, and I have a doctorate in political science.
Okay, well, as you can guess from our name, Progressive Democrats, we're interested in progressive candidates.
Sure.
Would you call yourself a progressive?
Yes, I would.
Okay, and how would, let's say you're going to Congress fairly soon, would that be would you be an addition to the Congressional Progressive Caucus?
I just spoke with someone about that. Yes,
oh,
I
really?
would.
Okay, very good. And how do you think this will affect the way you operate in Washington, being a progressive?
You know what? I've considered myself always to be a progressive, and the way I operate, I don't really see any different. I'm open-minded, even if someone is conservative and does not agree with me. I like to learn about other people's position and what barriers I might need to break down or why they feel like they feel. I just think I've always been open to listening to both sides, whether I wind up agreeing or not agreeing or modifying how I think. But
okay.
I'm just going to operate like I always have.
Great. Let's talk a little bit about your district. Maybe you could just give a little summary of the district, the people in it, and the challenges that you say. I know you mentioned a little bit about it.
The district is urban, suburban, and rural. It goes from the south side of the city of Chicago all the way to Kankakee. And I think a couple of the issues are economic development. Areas are economically distressed. Too many people don't have jobs or they're underemployed. And the other very big issue is the violence in too many of our neighborhoods. We have to do something about that. Kids are dying every day. I know people talk about Newtown and mass murder, which was horrible, but in the Chicagoland area we have young folks dying every day, and we're losing the next president, architect, writer, journalist, nurse, and that's something I will definitely stand up with the president to pass reasonable gun safety laws. And also we need access to mental health, good schools, people need jobs. It's all a part of it.
Okay. Now, some of your opponents have said you're trying to make this a one-issue campaign. What do you say to them about that?
I don't agree with that. I've been involved in gun safety and anti-violence before I even thought about running for office, before I even moved to this area working in domestic violence and child abuse, and when I moved up here, worked with people we formed a group that dealt with anti-gang activity to give kids more productive things to do. That is a very big issue. The president is talking about it. I've been talking about it for a long time, and actually in the legislature we passed a bill together, a gun safety bill that dealt with straw purchases, but I also speak about jobs, the importance of infrastructure and transportation. I think people say that because they don't want to talk about guns.
Okay. Looking at some of the programs that are under attack right now, particularly Social Security and Medicare, what would you do to preserve and extend Social Security?
First of all, I would not agree to any cuts in entitlement. I feel that we can look at things like the Pentagon said they didn't need as much money for defense. If they're telling you they don't need as much money, we need to
must
take
be
them
something
up.
there, huh?
We need to take them up on their offer. We need to close all corporate loopholes and make sure corporations are paying taxes. From my understanding, General Electric didn't pay any tax. That's a little ridiculous. So I feel like we need to see where we can cut, what loopholes we can close before we touch any entitlements, because those entitlements help us keep people out of poverty.
You know, our healthcare system, we seem to have such complexity. You know, we have so many different programs, and Medicare, Medicaid, veterans, private insurance, and now with ACA, there'll be probably more complexity. And there's been some, criticism of ACA and because of the complexity. What are your thoughts about ACA and I mean, Obamacare? I guess it's already all right to call it that now. Do you see it? How do you see it as it phases in?
I see it as very complex, but I'm glad that the president won. So because there was a lot of talk about repealing it, and I didn't want to do that because healthcare is so badly needed. People have gone into poverty because of lack of health care and having to decide between whether they're going to eat or have medicine. I will say I'm going to be there as it gets implemented, and I just want to make sure that the formula is correct, the subsidies are right, that people don't fall between the cracks, and also I want to make sure it's the affordable in the Affordable Care Act that's the problem, and I want to make sure that we do everything we can, like use our bulk buying power, you know, to drive down some of the costs. Also, the issue of fraud. There was one doctor that defrauded the government about, I believe, $337 million. Not saying that every doctor's going to do that, but I'm sure, you know, he's not the, only person, and it may be other people beside doctors. I don't want to just put it on doctors, but I think we need to look at those things too, and also see how technology will play a role, so things will be cheaper instead of going to one doctor, getting an x-ray, running to another place and having to get an x-ray. So there's things we can do.
Okay, if costs are, if the cost containment isn't working in ACA and costs begin to run out of control, do you think you could support Medicare for All, something that would just supersede all those other programs, single payer?
Yes, I can.
And would you
universal health care?
Yeah, would you sign on to John Conyers' bill, HR 676?
Yes.
Very good. We all know that students are having a big problem right now because they are graduating with an enormous amount of debt to get through college. How do you see that problem? What can government do to allay that problem?
Well, one of the graduate students that I spoke to discussed with me that there was a program where they wouldn't have to pay interest until after they graduated, but she said they're pulling back on that. I think anything we can do as far as allaying some of those things, interest until people have jobs, or what I did personally, I actually started a scholarship at the school I went to in an endowment, and if we could get businesses more involved, like public-private partnerships to help young people going through school. It is expensive, but I also know that professors feel like a lot of their salaries are low too. It's just expensive to go to school. But also, I think looking at loans and very low interest loans, and also giving people the chance to get a job under the belt. Not as soon as you get a job, you have to start paying back the loan, because I know like people that owe hundreds, $100,000 on their college or more than that.
Yeah, I mean it's incredible.
Right.
Moving along a little bit now, the country seems to be at war continually, at least for decades. And so, what changes would you like to see in foreign policy that might like a withdrawal from Afghanistan and
I, on a very small scale, to what you're talking about, I consider myself a coalition builder and a unifier. So I like the idea that we try to be diplomatic around the world and bring people together. But I am very surprised that we stayed in the war this long. I think our troops need to come home. Too many of our young people have died, and I know older people too, but also too many people have come home maimed, and we need to bring them home. I'm not opposed to leaving advisors there to help the country, but we've been there too long.
I see, great. Some people have criticized the president in use of drones. What would you say to the president about his use of drones?
I'm learning more and more about it, and I've listened to different constituents and how they feel. I'm uncomfortable with it.
Okay, very good. Let's shift to your campaign. What's your strategy for winning on February 26th?
Leaving no stone unturned is my major strategy. Knocking on doors, targeting voters, getting voters out early. Of course, having to raise money, going to the trains, and getting my message out in every area that I can get it out in.
Okay. And how do you feel you're doing?
I feel very good. I feel very confident. I got some great endorsements and some more.
Which one are you happiest about?
Which one? Wow, I'm happy it's about all of them.
Okay.
Not one or the other.
Right.
You know, I feel good about
very good.
You know, the paper endorsement, the elected officials that are endorsing me, but most importantly, the people that are endorsing me, and those are my many volunteers that are spending their time.
Are you disappointed that someone that we know didn't endorse you?
You know what? Everyone has the right to endorse who they want. I'm disappointed that, if we're talking about the same someone, that she endorsed someone that seems to be on the opposite side of her in a number of issues.
What do you think is really going to make the difference in this campaign?
Beside hard work, I do really think that the gun issue resonates. Of course, you know, people want jobs. That resonates too. But also, I think people are looking at what we've done in the past, relationships that we've developed, who they trust, who's ethical, and that kind of thing. Okay.
And so far in your campaign, what's given you the most hope?
I think all the people that have come to help out, because they don't have to. No one has to donate. No one has to give time to you. And so many people have.
If people inside or outside the district want to support you, what should they do?
They can go to robinkellyforcongress.com.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Oh, and this is Bill Bianchi saying goodbye from Richmond Park, talking with Robin Kelly, candidate for Illinois 2nd District Congressional seat. Thanks a lot.